back, and so honored. I've been looking forward to this, to have with us today Cynthia Garrett. She's a longtime television host who became the first black woman to host a network late-night show, the NBC's Later with Cynthia Garrett. She's currently the host of Sessions with Cynthia Garrett. They're on TBN, and a highly sought-after speaker, ordained minister, and she is the author of several books, including their latest one called The Naked Truth. There's a picture of the cover of the book on the screen. And Cynthia does have a website, cynthiagarrett.org, and you'll find that to be very resourceful there. Check that out with their show as well. Cynthia, good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's nice to be with you.
Thank you. Where are you? Where are we Skyping you in from?
Skyping me in from just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where my husband and I live.
Yeah, that's why you got a big smile on your face there.
Yes, because I'm a native Californian who fled. I fled the evil empire in California. Couldn't take it anymore.
You're a California refugee. Got it. I saw your interview on Laura Ingraham. Well done. Thank you, and thanks for your time. So much to talk to you about. So little time. I want to talk to you about young people and the things that they're struggling with. They seem to be so disconnected. Some are angry. Some are depressed. What's your take?
I think they're hopeless. I think they're disconnected because there is a mass amount of hopelessness in young people today. And that hopelessness is something that was put there, I think, by design, because certainly the enemy of our souls is not stupid. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people who have gone along with this agenda are stupid. And I think it started when we began taking prayer out of schools and taking away Judeo-Christian values that taught children to love themselves and to love God and to love each other. And now, when you get rid of God and the notion of God, what you do to children is you leave them lost and clinging to whatever they're taught from the world around them. And the secular world around them is twisting the notion of love and what love is and what it looks like.
You ring a bell here because when we get correspondence through the Dove Radio and TV network, a lot of this comes down to some very basic questions. Is there a God? Does he love me? And I'm wondering, have we just kind of went over the top of young people trying to make it too simple when they really are looking for structure?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say this all the time because people, and I'm really proud of this fact, people always say to me, how did you raise such an awesome 30-year-old son? And I said, well, it's really easy. He had structure and boundaries. He thrived and he blossomed within structure and boundaries. Kids like to know how far they can push it. Young people want to know, well, if I walk this far, do I fall over the edge of the cliff? And it's up to parents to do that. That's our job. And unfortunately, our job as parents is being upended by the government and by a woke agenda that has permeated our schools. It's permeated our culture, and it's permeated the way that we think. Young people don't know how to think. They're getting their cues from twisted, broken agendas.
Your book, Naked Truth, I want to come to this because you deal with this subject of the misconceptions about sexuality and all the nonsense that's being taught. How come, Cynthia, that the sexualization of students is the #1 topic in public education? How did that eclipse arithmetic, U.S. history, math, science? What happened here?
Oh, I think it goes all the way back to let's get rid of prayer in schools. Let's keep God out of the classroom. I think that was laying the ground, the foundation for ultimately what was always intended to be an agenda to make sex and sexuality something very unsacred. I think pedophilia has always been in view by a lot of these systems and these sort of corrupted political systems that are in place. I think that, making it okay to do what thou wilt, which of course is a satanic agenda. I think the goal has been to make it that all along. So, turning sex into something that's not sacred, that's not godly, that's not created by God, separating us from marriage and a family, where kids are taught that mom and dad are necessary in the home. All of this has been a part of really and truly us becoming where we are today. And I point in my book from a 30,000-foot view at the feminist movement and the sexual revolution, which coincided beautifully to really destroy the family unit and to help us end up right where we are today, where it's a free-for-all with sex, and let's go after the children and teach them that it's a free-for-all for them also.
For those of us who lived through the 60s, this is almost a repeat, but it's taken to another level, dealing with transition and all the other things that are going on. But I guess what I'm asking here is, where young people need structure and boundaries and guardrails, how do we weave into that conversation sexual purity?
I think, honestly, we have to weave it in really boldly. I think, it's sort of twofold. Yes, we need to weave it in and we need to be clever, but we also need to just call it as it is. We need to give them examples. The church needs to start doing its job and not avoid this awkward conversation. Every home and every parent has to stop and ask themselves one overarching question. If I am not speaking to my kids about sex and sexuality, then who is? And I think we all know the answer to the question, who is? And we all know what kind of people and what kind of agendas are speaking to them. So I think we begin to do it by just opening up the dialogue and remembering that we were once human too. We have to remember what it was like to struggle with our flesh. And we've got to point these kids toward a pure relationship with Christ. That's where it really starts. We've got to teach them about purity in the mind, because then purity in the soul and purity in your body and your behavior follows. But it starts in the mind, and the mind needs to be pointed back toward a relationship with Christ. We've got to teach them the truth. We've got to raise them to know what the Word of God is and not think that it's not cool or that it's not in, anymore to teach them these things. These aren't old-fashioned things. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Bible.
Yeah.
But we've got to take it seriously.
Do you think the faith community is ready for this challenge? And let me, as I asked that question, I ran into something the other day that was very interesting, talking to a bunch of youth pastors. It used to be being a youth pastor was arranging for barbecues and car washes.
Right.
Today, they're dealing with transition and not telling your parents and learning all about sex in school. I mean, the youth pastor's job is radically changed, and I don't know if they're prepared for it.
Well, in large part, many of them are not prepared for it. I mean, let's be real. Many pastors on podiums today have not been prepared for it. That's why we've had such a mass falling down in the church into sexual sin, by men, young and old, who've led huge ministries with huge global and international reach. So we've got to start to focus on some truths. Number one, broken people break other people. So before someone is exalted into ministry, just because leadership sees a rock star who can make a lot of money in the church, they've got to also deal with that person's soul. Are they broken? Are they restored? And have they dealt with their issues? Some of those issues include sexual abuse. Some of those issues include, abandonment, rejection, all kinds of things that, we all have experienced growing up in a broken world. So we've got to deal with the condition of the soul of the type of people that are being elevated into positions of leadership.
I only have here 1 second. I do want to get you back, but what do you want the walkaway from your book to be?
Wow. I want the walkaway to be that God created sex. He created it with a purpose and with meaning. And we need to start to embrace the sacredness of a relationship with Christ and all of the gifts and the blessings that come from that. And in that, we then can embrace the definition of sex, which was created for the marriage bed. We can then look at the fact that the purity doctrine placed a lot of rules on people. Rules never work. We have a God who didn't write us a list of rules. He wrote us a love letter in which to find ourselves, a love letter in which we find how much we are loved, and it encourages us to love ourselves and each other. So I want the walkaway to be a return to purity, a purity revolution in the mind. It starts in the mind and the body follows.
You think, Cynthia, this is a big question. I don't have time to get into it all. But do you think that part of this issue is that we have lost the fear of the holiness of God?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, if we
yes.
don't see him as holy, then anything goes, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we see him as holy, then we understand the depth of the scripture that tells us the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. I shared that with my son the other day. And I said, you know, there are things in my life growing up that I never tried because I was afraid that God might strike me down, that God might be angry, that I might in some way be disconnected from God. And that fear of the Lord caused me to sit back and wait for the explanation and the revelation about why I didn't do what I did. And God always shows you. You always see in hindsight, like, whoa, I'm really glad I didn't walk through that door, because that door was filled with nothing but traps and pitfalls, you know?
Do you think, I know you're advocating for a purity revolution. Do you think we are on the verge of one?
I think that we're on the verge of such destruction because of the unsacred way that we view sex and sexuality, that a purity revolution is the only thing that will save us. I was listening to you speak to the gentleman from the military in another segment. And why do you think we have a government telling us that transgenderism and all of this other stuff belongs in the military? We need a purity revolution on every level.
Every level. You're fascinating. You're inspiring. Thank you. Can we get you back sometime?
Anytime. I'd love to.
All right. Let me say, go to cynthiagarrett.org. That's her website. But check out her book, The Naked Truth, and check out her show with there on TBN, Sessions with Cynthia Garrett. There's a picture of the cover of the book. So good stuff all the way around. Thank you, Cynthia, for your time. Thank you for being a frontline warrior. Let's stay connected.
Thank you. I'd love to. Thank you so much.